Last off. Good morning. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners meeting this morning. It is December the 1st, 2021. Before we officially start our meeting, we always start with a prayer. Commissioner Painter, would you lead us this morning?
Be honored to.
Thank
If you
you.
feel so moved, please bow your head. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you this morning as Board of County Commissioners to do the business for the residents here in Clermont County. Lord, we ask you to be with those who are in attendance today. We ask that their ears would be open and that they would gain wisdom, not only from this meeting, but from you. Lord, we ask you to be with those who are in the armed services of the United States today, who are protecting our freedoms here and abroad. Lord, we ask you to be with them and join them safely with their families at the end of their tour. We ask you to be with those who are in the law enforcement agencies today, especially our sheriff's office and those who are first responders and firefighters. Lord, we know that they go away from their family and that they place themselves in harm's way, that we might have a safer place to live, work, and raise a family. Lord, we ask you to be with those who are ill and afflicted today, who are unable to attend this meeting. We ask your healing hand be on them, that they might join us at a later date. Lord, it's in all of these things we ask in your Son's precious name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Now to officially start our meeting, Commissioner Batchelor, would you lead us in the pledge?
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on our agenda this morning is under item B, approval of regular session minutes of November 17, 2021, and a special session on November 29, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes. Under item C for presentations this morning, we have a couple additions today, so bear with us, please. But the first one, Julia Nesbitt, are you with us, please, this morning? Good morning. For the Health Department, we thought it'd be good to give an update to everyone. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning, everyone. I will be quick so as to not take up too much of your time, but just kind of wanted to give a quick update on where we're at with COVID and what we're seeing. So unfortunately, we have started to see over kind of the last month since I last came and presented to you an uptick in cases. We thought we were doing well kind of coming through Delta and we were on the way down, and then we've kind of started back up a little bit. So our 14-day case rate per 100,000 over the last 14 days is at 498. That'll be updated later this afternoon. Our 7-day case rate over the last, or per 100,000 is at 309. So it is definitely up from where we were, 3 or 4 weeks ago. The good news is we are also starting to see increases in vaccination numbers kind of continue up, not only with the opening up of the 5 to 11-year-olds for vaccination, but also we are seeing people continue to come in as they come in and bring family members who may need to get boosters or children who may need to get vaccinated. We're also seeing adults continue to get vaccinated for the first time. So that is kind of good news there as we continue to roll out vaccine to additional individuals. We were able to host, there are clinics, but we go out to the schools just to make it convenient for families. If they do want to get their children vaccinated, we were able to hit 7 of our 9 districts. Health Source of Ohio helps us pick up our other 2 districts in order to provide on-site just resources there to make it easier for parents. We are continuing through December. We will also be doing evening clinics to help working families out. Parents who may want to still get their kiddos in, but don't want to have to take them out of school for that. So each Wednesday we're doing evening clinics at our offices on Clermont Center Drive. We continue to offer vaccination clinics Tuesday through Fridays there. So as far as we are starting to, as I indicate with cases, we're also starting to see kind of increased strain back on the hospitals again, throughout the region and here in Clermont County with that. And the concern is we are going to kind of converge with influenza season coming on, and we're starting to see some cases pop up with influenza as we start up over the next kind of few months with the flu season along with that. I know a lot of people were asking kind of questions and concerns with the Omicron variant that has come out, and it got plastered all over the news media kind of over the weekend. So it is deemed a variant of concern by the World Health Organization, but we really need to kind of get some more data on it and really see what's going to happen with that. You know, when you have a small number of cases, it's hard to really determine how transmissible. Is it really going to make people more sick? And we just don't have that information yet. It just takes a while to get enough cases, being able to track that. We are not aware of any in Clermont County, but it is inevitable when viruses mutate like that. By the time you find it, it has already spread. So it's very difficult to kind of stop that from occurring. I know, you know, some states are locking down international travel, or some nations are locking down international travel again from various places, but it's inevitable. It will eventually get here with it. But I think we just need to kind of sit tight and get some additional information. You know, every time a new variant comes out, we're in a different place. We're in a different place. So we're in a different place today than we were when Delta came out. We do have more people vaccinated. We now have vaccine available to the younger age groups. So we just kind of have to wait and see what impact that is going to have. I would anticipate that we would probably continue to see higher cases. And that is really what we saw with the most recent uptick. Is that happened about a week or two after kind of Halloween, and there were a lot of football games going on. And gathering. So I would anticipate with Thanksgiving, Christmas holidays coming up that we'll probably continue to see higher levels throughout at least the next few months. And then hopefully start to decline from there with it. So there is lots of testing resources available that are out there. There's information up on our website for anyone who needs to be tested. Our YMCA and our public libraries do have test kits. We encourage you to please call ahead because their supplies do wax and wane depending on availability with that to be able to do it. And then certainly, you know, urgent care's doctor offices, they're all testing also. So if people have, you know, come into contact with individuals who may be symptomatic, we would encourage them to go ahead and get tested so that they can take appropriate action from there. That is really all I have, unless you all have questions.
Any questions, board?
2 questions. Just to make a comment on, it seems, and I say it seems that we're starting to see, you know, on the news cases where people have been fully vaccinated. Some have even taken a booster that actually come down with COVID.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people want to kind of wash that as the fact that, you know, maybe the vaccine isn't effective, but I know there's a different take on that when it comes to vaccines. Would you just kind of dispel that out?
Sure. And so, you know, as we talked about vaccines, the intent of the vaccine was to reduce deaths and hospitalizations on it. And certainly the vaccine does reduce cases. It doesn't eliminate them, though. No vaccine is 100% effective. We have some that are really close, but there is none that is absolutely 100% effective. Immunity wanes. You also have individuals who may be immune compromised. So maybe the vaccine didn't take effect as well in them. Everybody has a different immune response, and it may be a perfectly healthy individual. Like there's no way to really tell with that. So we anticipate that there would be vaccinated individuals who would still become ill, and some of them still end up in the hospital, and unfortunately, some of them still die too. However, the vaccine, you can definitely see since vaccines started to roll out the decreases. We are still not where we were in January of last year. We are nowhere near there. With what we were seeing as far as, you know, case rates and even hospitalizations. You know, there's issues of hospitals are being stressed because of staffing levels and there's burnout and people have left. And so they're still being stressed, but we are not where we were back. And that is really, the vaccines are effective with reducing that, you know, level of kind of hospitalization and death that we were previously seeing with it. So I don't think, you know, you should get vaccinated and 100% assume that you're not necessarily going to ever get it. As we start to see the variants occur too, we'll have to, again, we got to wait and see with this new one, how effective are the vaccines going to be against the variants, if there's some slight tweaks in them. And then, and I'm going to forget the name of it, but the new pharmaceutical drug that just came out also that is likely going to be approved and pushed out is also very promising at reducing hospitalizations and deaths for those, you know, with moderate to severe symptoms. So again, one more tool in our toolbox that we're going to have to be able to combat that and hopefully keep our hospitalizations and deaths down, which is really our goal.
And I don't want to belabor, you know, you having to be up here and explain everything, but could you just touch on the basis of treatment and therapeutics for COVID-19, I know there's been a lot of conversation about, and I think monoclonal, is that
So
right?
the monoclonal antibodies on it, it is certainly an option, for some people, in order to do it. So basically you're taking, a person who has had COVID can donate antibodies to be able to help another person combat it. So that is certainly an option. I think the nice thing coming out with this kind of antiviral pill is you don't need, I don't need to find another person who has it to be able to do that. And then the monoclonal antibodies, a lot of times it requires like an infusion. So that's something that is not necessarily you're having done in a doctor's office, whereas a script will be. Now, keeping in mind when that drug does come out, and there will be limited quantities to begin with, and that's just a manufacturing issue. But I do think it's going to make things a lot easier per se. And then eventually, and again, at first it'll be limited. I don't exactly know how the state's going to distribute it yet. It'll come to the states and then it'll go out. So I don't know if that's going to be done through hospitals. They're still working on plans on that, on the distribution of it. But at some point near in the future, we're going to get to, it's going to be very similar to antivirals that we do for influenza. So, Tamiflu, that any, your doctor can write you a script, you can go get Tamiflu. You do have to make sure though, that those antivirals have to be taken within the first few days of symptoms. So it's not something that you can linger on. Like after 2 weeks, it's probably not going to help you quite as much. You do want it early on in symptom onset in order for it to be more effective. Not that it couldn't be at some other point, but you do want to typically, with the antivirals, you want them typically within a couple days of symptom onset.
Close experience with the infusion. Just like you said, it takes a doctor's prescription, and only place here in Cincinnati that is available to do that recently was Bethesda North. And that is a 2.5 hour, it's an IV sit for 2.5 hours. That's kind of how that's done.
It's not an easy thing to do, which is why I think we're, from a public health standpoint, I think probably most medical individuals we're kind of encouraged by seeing the antiviral come out, just because it's going to be a simpler process to hopefully get a similar level of result, we're hoping, but we'll have to wait and see.
Fantastic. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Next presentation we have this morning is Lyle Bloom, the Water Department. Good morning, Lyle. I see you have a whole team here today.
Yes, well, no, not nearly.
Part of them.
I don't think there's enough room for the whole thing. But let's see, I do have a presentation, but I don't know how to get it up there.
I wasn't given a presentation.
All right.
That's Mary's presentation.
All right. Well, I can just talk about
Well,
it.
you can talk. Do you want?
Does it look like this?
Copy?
It does look like.
Okay.
You have a copy of that with you?
I do.
Okay. Well, we'll
Much better
talk.
with photos, but we have it.
Let me see what I can do.
All right.
It was sent
It's-
over.
Sorry.
That's all right. We like hearing you talk.
Do you want to move on with the agenda and then get it up? I mean, is that something that can be done, David? Can we get
You
it
would
up?
rather it be up, Lyle?
You want to wait?
Up to you.
Okay. Well, budget is next. That's why I'm asking.
You guys don't have a water leak or something you got to go repair real quick, do you?
Sure we do.
I'm not going to be responsible if you don't fix it.
I just knew that answer was coming.
I don't know. I don't know where you've got the computer to plug a flash drive in or something? Okay. All right. Well, I will start with it and maybe we can
Okay.
Catch up, right?
So I do have some staff here, and really, I wanted to talk about the Water Resources Department. I know I'm kind of the face of the Water Resources Department. You guys see me up here pretty much weekly presenting items, but we've got a team of 117 employees, really broken down into 6 divisions. We have a fiscal and customer service division, construction engineering division, maintenance division, water supply, wastewater treatment, and then our Office of Environmental Quality. And our mission statement for the Water Resources Department is to provide current and future customers with a dependable, safe, and high-quality supply of drinking water and advanced treatment and disposal of wastewater and residuals at affordable rates with courteous and timely customer service while cooperating with other agencies to protect and preserve our natural water resources and environment. So again, the purpose of my presentation is just to maybe introduce you to some of the staff and the different divisions for us to meet our mission statement. It's like we're getting close to having the presentation.
Good. 49,000 customers is one of the things I'm reading. Is that right?
Correct.
Well,
So
there we go.
first up, here it comes. Yep,
Just
that's
easier
fine.
to
Yep.
scroll with that.
Easier for me. All right, so here we go. So first up is our customer service, fiscal and customer service division. It's really broken out by two different divisions. Karen Myers is our new fiscal administrator, and she's sitting in the back there. She manages the fiscal side of this department, managing the budgeting, revenue projections, rate evaluations, and our debt service. And our customer service side of things, these are the folks that are doing all the bi-monthly billing, processing payments, scheduling shutoffs for delinquent payments, restores to turn the customers back on. Customer inquiries, those are customers that walk in our front doors, phone calls, email inquiries. They're handling all those. We have they handle work order management. So if a customer calls in and has a problem, they'll issue a work order, and then our field crews will go out and address it. They do website updates. If we have a water main break, it may affect hundreds of customers. So it seems like all hundreds of those customers are called to know that there's a water main break, and it may be affecting maybe why they don't have water at that time. Then they also handle the utility locate requests to comply with the Ohio Utility Protection Service and the positive response that's required for that. So in the photo, just kind of starting in the back row, we have Kara Philpott, Carol Means, Karen Myers, Darlene Swartz, Jennifer Diesel Sloan. And then in the front, we have Peggy Fithen, Jamie Schaefer, Amy Dees, and Jamie Foster. I will say Darlene Swartz and Jennifer Diesel Sloan, they're not really in the fiscal and customer service division. They're administrative or executive assistants that work directly with me and support the entire water resources department, managing payroll, purchase order, requisitions, budget reviews, submittals to the Board of County Commissioners. Many of the stuff that you see kind of funnels through them for submittal to the board. And I'm horrible at names, particularly when I'm on the spot and making a presentation. So I'm cheating and reading names off. So I can look at someone that I've known forever and blank. So our next division is the Construction and Engineering Division. This is our group that manage, it's a team, I'll say, a team of 11 and a half. We do share an engineer with the building department that assists with plan review of new subdivisions and new development that comes through. But they manage a $19 million a year capital improvement program, and that's everything, I call it cradle to grave. That's planning, design, permitting, easement acquisition, bidding, and then construction administration and help with closeout of those contracts. They perform subdivision and new development plan review and inspection, coordination with ODOT, TID improvements, and county engineer improvements. And then we do have a staff member, it's Dustin Stager, that does all the updates and maintenance of the water and sewer layers in the county's GIS system. So in the photo, we'll start in the back, Matt Sander, back going left to right, Dave Dufresne, Randy Dotson, Tim Cherry, and Rick Schramm. And in the front, starting with Wes Fritz, Jennifer Brooks, Ainsley Napke, who's also here in attendance, and Dustin Stager. Missing is Chris Rowland. Chris is the assistant sanitary engineer and actually manages this group. He's out on medical leave. Hope to have him back next week. So he was not available for the photo.
And Lyle, out of these folks in construction engineering, when it comes to the building of the treatment plant in Wayne Township, which one of these guys will be the project manager over that?
Chris Rowland.
Chris, I'm glad you said that. And there's no pressure there, as long as it's under budget and on schedule. No.
That's right. Right. No big deal. All right, next up is our maintenance division. This is our largest division. It's a team of, let's see here. I know I have this written down here. Team of 45 employees when we're fully staffed. I will say with our whole organization, I don't know that there's ever been a day when we've been fully staffed. There's always vacancies that we're filling. People come and go, but in an organization this big, that's common. These are the folks that are on call 24/7, 365. The water main group, they manage 822 miles of water main. They are the supervisor over the water distribution group is Scott Green, and Scott's in attendance as well. They've got over 8,500 fire hydrants, over 16,000 valves, over 44,000 water customers. And then they also install water meters for new homes. So that's tapping the main, running the water service, setting the meter. In 2020, they installed 523 new meters. And just for perspective, back in 2015, they had installed 280. So we're continuing to see more and more development each year. And on the sewer side of things, we have James Mattis here. James also has with him Rob Bunch and Matt Fleischel. James is the supervisor over the collections group. They manage our sewer system. That's 728 miles of sewer main, over 14,000 manholes. They do some of the maintenance on the 8 wastewater treatment plants we have. All the maintenance on the 109 lift stations or pump stations, our 2 EQ storage tanks, and serve over 40,000 sewer customers. Rob and Matt, Rob drives the Vector truck and they assist each other in main. So they're doing all the sewer cleaning, the cleaning of the wet wells, all the dirty stuff you don't want to think about. And I do have some additional photos here of our maintenance group in action. This is just our water distribution. So last week, during the week of Thanksgiving, our distribution group was lowering a water main to assist the county engineer with a road project it's a bridge or culvert replacement on Old 74. So you've got Scott Green there cutting the pipe, and then on the right, Josh Klosser and Kyle Forsey bolting together some fittings. And next photo, there they are. Oh, let's see here. Down in the hole, Wes Stevens, and then in the middle is Mike Schneider, and up top is Ryan Shields. And of course, in the other slide, I had the photo of the majority of the whole team there. I won't go through and name them all, but it's a large group of employees. On the water supply, they're managed by Tim Nyers, our Assistant Director of Operations for Water Supply. Tim's here in attendance. It's a team of 23 employees. That includes 2 maintenance people and 2 a lab supervisor and a lab tech that work in the water supply division. There's 3 water treatment plants. In 2020, they produced almost 4.9 billion gallons of water. We've got a rated capacity between all 3 treatment plants of 36.2 million gallons a day. Our water lab, again, this is a 2-person laboratory, collected 5,000 samples, or average about 5,000 samples a year. And each sample has about 3 to 5 analyses that has to be performed on each one. The maintenance group there, they maintain the 19 elevated storage tanks, the 6 ground level storage tanks, 25 wells, our 1 surface water intake that's at Harsha. And then between them and the operators, they perform all the repairs at the treatment plants, housekeeping. We don't have cleaning services that come in. They do all that. And then all the snow removal at the treatment plants and access out to the intake structure. They also provide after-hour water and sewer response for emergency calls. So if you call in after our normal office hours, depending on if it's a water or sewer emergencies are going to go up to our BMW water plant, and the operators there will take that call and then dispatch our on-call crews. And then our PUB water plant handles all the after-hour water emergencies. Again, they take the calls and then dispatch whoever from our maintenance crew is on call. Our water supply group were a little camera shy, so the number of photos we have are less, and it's all the back of their heads. I don't think they were interested in getting their pictures taken. So on the left there, we have Ken Allen. On the right is Melissa Hensley, and these are both at our Bob McEwen water treatment plant. And last but not least, here we have Ryan Hancock. Ryan is our plant manager for our surface water, which is our Bob McEwen water treatment plant. It's our largest treatment plant, and it's a class 4 water treatment plant. Wastewater treatment, that is managed by Randy Davis, who's also here in attendance, sitting up front. That's a team of 20 employees. They have 8 wastewater treatment plants ranging in size from 140,000 gallons a day to 9 million gallons a day. And in 2020, they treated almost or over 6.2 billion gallons of wastewater. They also manage the septage receiving station that's at our Middle East Fork wastewater treatment plant. Or dewatering operations that we have to manage at all the treatment plants to separate the biosolids from the sludge or produce biosolids. And then they also perform maintenance and repair at the treatment plants, the general housekeeping, mowing, and snow removal as well. And the map there to the right kind of shows where our treatment plants are. So we've got, a treatment plant as far southeast as Felicity, and then as far northwest as around the Loveland area. So all the little pink dots there represent one of our 8 wastewater treatment plants. In the photo are our operators at the Lower East Fork wastewater treatment plant. From left to right, we have Julie Kidwell, Chelsea Bates, Mike Clark, Greg Costello, Kevin Saunders, and Doug Martin. Next, bottom left is our 3 operators that manage our Ward's Corner treatment plant, our Miami Trails treatment plant, and our Arrowhead wastewater treatment plant. From left to right, you have Brian Williamson, Dave Pigg, and Tony Meek. And then on the right is our O'Bannon wastewater treatment plant operators. From left to right is Chad Oberly, Giles Thrift, and Joe Hitt. Next, bottom left is our Middle East Fork treatment plant. This is our 2nd largest treatment plant. It's located on Haskell Lane here in the village of Batavia. From left to right is Nora Combs, Matt Newman, and Dale Gable. And on the right is our 9 Mile treatment plant, and they also manage our Felicity wastewater treatment plant. From left to right is Larry Kahn, Dave Linville, Kerry Calhoun, and Dan Bailey. And Larry actually bounces back and forth between our 9 Mile treatment plant and our Urbana treatment plant. He runs our portable centrifuge, which is used to dewater the sludge and produce the biosolids. Up next is our Wastewater Laboratory, which is actually part of our Office of Environmental Quality and managed by the OEQ is managed by Hannah Lubers. It's a team of 5. We do have Shannon Reisner here and Joe Scharf, our lab supervisor, and Joe is our chemist. The wastewater lab runs about 8,000 tests per year. They serve our 8 wastewater treatment plants. In addition, they serve the village in Richmond, the city of Milford, and a total of 6 other entities. They also serve the county public health department, running samples for them, and watershed samples for the Office of Environmental Quality. And then Shannon, not only is she the lab supervisor, she's our industrial waste pretreatment supervisor, and she manages the IWPT program for the county, which serves 16 significant industrial users, which are large industrial customers. We're required to have this program by Ohio EPA, and then we expect to have 3 additional significant industrial users added to that list in 2022. And we've got some photos here. Oh, let me jump back to my photo here from left to right. We'll go clockwise in the photo. We have Eric Chapman, Jacob Spoor, Jazz Takar, Shannon Reisner, and Joe Scharf. And then there you have Eric Chapman and Joe Scharf working in the lab. And that's all I have, just to introduce you to some of our staff. But they really make things work. Again, I'm just up here presenting items. Usually they're behind the scenes doing all that really make the Water Resources Department function.
So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Mhm.
Tell me what you need for the future. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
People?
People, I think we need to be competitive with our wages. That's going to be important. We've got good people. We need to focus on keeping the people that we have, and then the ability to continue to attract and retain good qualified employees, because they're really the backbone of the organization.
Yes. Good answer.
And,
But-
and one other is expanding the reach that we have for infrastructure.
Yes.
Absolutely. We'll continue with our capital plan. That's kind of a separate,
Yeah.
but we've got a large capital improvement program that we're continuing to work on every year. And again, to keep those staff there to manage that, because it does not manage itself.
And just in future, any funding coming in or anything, keep in your head what you're thinking about developing more water and sewer throughout this county. And, especially for areas that have nothing, and for future development. I'd like to just thank you this morning for bringing part of your staff here, only because I'm the idiot in the black car that waves to them as they all go by, and they all look at me like, well, who is that? And I just love doing it. Even if they're working, I'm the one tooting the horn, saying hi, and they're like, okay, who is that? But anyway, go ahead.
And for the guys that, you showed this great picture of these guys down in the hole and, actually doing the work, just for a shout out to you guys. I knew that picture was staged right off. There's no 4 supervisors standing looking over that hole yet.
Actually, it was mostly supervisors working
In the hole, right? There you go.
Well, Lyle, we have a certificate of appreciation this morning for you and for your staff. So I don't know if do we want to stay up here and let them all line up in front of us, please? How about, come on up, every one of you. I'm glad you all came. At least we get to put the faces with the work out here.
You get to see who you're blowing.
Yeah, who are, yeah, okay, so would you wave back? I'm getting a little paranoid. Nobody's saying anything.
Tell her next time, instead of waving, stop, bring coffee.
Oh, yeah, bring
Right.
coffee.
Bring coffee.
Come on, line up, everybody.
Get in
Get in the
there,
Get right in
middle.
the middle.
Hang
Here,
on, I'll
scoot
give you
in,
this.
scoot
This is
in.
a certificate of appreciation for what this entire department does.
No, that's
No, we're
fine.
good.
No, you're fine.
Oh, he's on the chair. We're in trouble.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Hang on to him.
Oh, boy.
And 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Thank
There you
you.
go.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you, Lyle.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for all you do, every one of you. And if we don't see you, Merry Christmas.
No problem. Get back to work.
Get back to work.
That was very nice.
It was very nice. So we have one more presentation this morning. Mary Raines, Director of Clermont County Office of Management Budget. Good morning.
Good morning.
And this is on the proposed annual appropriations for calendar year 2022.
This is our first look,
First look.
keeping in mind that this could be as fast as you want it to be, or could take up the rest of the day. We don't want to go there.
No.
There are a lot of things that are not yet in this budget. This is a draft. You have some things that you want to take a look at over the next week or two. The goal is to have this adopted on the 15th. So keep that in mind as we're going through this. This is strictly a preliminary draft.
Thank you.
In 2022, we're looking at having 111 funds in the appropriation. This is down from 115 last year. We've added some, we've removed some, so it's just a net change of 4. We're going to concentrate on the general fund, but there is still a larger piece, like 75% of what's in there is other funds. But the general fund is your biggest discretionary fund, and it supports all the major elected officials in the county and so forth. And this is something that, unlike the tax budget, it has to balance. So we have to make sure that we have the revenues with carryover that'll support the expenditures. Okay, so on this slide, we're going to kind of hover here for a little bit. It shows you the trend, and I put in 2018 on here, 2019, because 2020, you can see, wasn't as good as it could have been because of the pandemic's impact. So I put that in there. We're going to go through these by groupings to kind of give you an idea of what's going on with them. Property tax this year, we had a big increase because of the revalue. And next year, we're looking at much smaller, just maybe a 0.5% increase in property taxes. Sales tax is the other one, and that's really the largest piece of the general fund operating. We did get like 4.7%, just under 5% over 2019's last year. And this year, we're looking at being over 15% of last year. So we're really, sales tax is really coming in. I think that the internet sales and the receipts coming back to the county have tremendously helped there. Again, we're looking at for next year just about a 4% increase. So we don't expect that big jump to continue and be sustained. But this is going to push the sales tax to be like 52% of our total general fund. So that's really something we heavily rely upon. Licenses going from 1.7, kind of hovering right there at $1.7 million. There was an increase this year because of some major developments in Batavia schools and another development that was in the works. So next year it's kind of leveling off. There's still going to be looking at some increase. They're looking at some changes in the fee structure. So that's kind of impacting there. The other thing that's in licenses, it's minimal, is you've got some vendor and cigarette licenses that are $10,000. So nothing at all really to look at there. Intergovernmental is the other big thing. Last year it was only 6.3 million. We're looking at close to 7.5 this and close to $8 million next year. The biggest things in there are the casino receipts that were down when the casinos had to close last year. This year they're at full operation, and we're looking at like a $840,000 increase over last year's. Next year we're looking at about a 2.5% increase over this year there. The next largest one is local government funds. And as you know, we get like 1.66% of the state general tax revenues that come into the county. And then what comes in here, we get 48.545% of that. So the amount that's based in here is on the July of 2021 estimate from the State Department of Taxation. That gets revised another time or two before it's all said and done. So we're looking at an increase there, and it's going to be about $1.4 million next year. The other major intergovernmental that we see coming in, that's kind of controversial, is the Indigent defense reimbursements. In 2020, we received $1.6 million. We had planned it to go up to 90%, starting out at 70%, so an average of 80%. But then because of COVID, the state reduced that back down. So it never climbed back. It stayed at 70% last year. This year, it has increased to 100% mid-year. It was 80% the first part of the year, and then it was increased to 100%. So we're looking at about $1.8 million coming in on that. And in 2022, we're banking on it being 100% reimbursement, so about $2.3 million. That's not only the public defender's office being reimbursed, and keep in mind it's 3 months in arrears, so it plays a catch up, but there's also revenue that comes in from appointed counsel. So those are all kind of buried in different court budgets there. So then we look down at charges for services. And again, this is a large one. We're seeing a big jump this year from last year, from 10.2 million to 11.4, and staying about 11.4 next year. And that's mainly due to activity in property transactions. Recorder, conveyance fees, those are all up. They're looking at like $5.2 million this year, which is expected to slow next year. The departments didn't put in as big of an increase for next year, but still we're looking at some minimal changes because of the fluctuation with other revenues that come in. The charges for services are not as much. Passport fees, they took a tank with the pandemic, and they are not yet there. So we've lost, quote, lost some revenues there. Indirect costs that we charge to other departments is kind of flat. There's not a whole lot of change in that. And then we have some the comm center fees where we held them flat this year to give the agencies the benefit of the monies that we're getting from other sources, so that they're getting general fund monies. Let's see. The 4D contracts run about $400,000 across all the departments, and that's getting about 66% of the revenues there. And then we had a small increase in the sheriff's fees. Investment income is used to be one of the larger pieces of the general fund back in the day, but you can see there that in 2019 we had 2.6 million. Last year it dropped down to 2.2, and we're under $1 million now, and just going up to a million next year. And that's part of the market. The rate of returns is down, even though our portfolio is growing. The rates that we're getting on investments just aren't there right now. So the investment advisor that works with the treasurer's office is being very cautious with the investments to try and put the money where it's going to work best for us, but not have it tied up too long for when the market does turn around. The fines and forfeitures is going to approach $1 million next year, which is more in line with what it was in 2019. You saw the big last year. The courts had to close. People weren't driving. Traffic fines is the largest piece of that. And they went down to 589,000 last year from in the neighborhood of 700,000. So they were the biggest piece of that. They're expected to reach back up to the 750,000 this year and next. So the other courts are starting to see in what they were bringing in pre-pandemic. And the miscellaneous revenues at the bottom just hover in the $1 million range. The biggest one out of that is the title surplus that the common pleas clerk returns to the general fund, and that's $500,000 for this will be the fourth year that it's at 500,000. And then we receive reimbursements from other funds for insurance, premium costs, and then we get lease revenues. On the insurance premium, about 43% is billed out to other agencies for their piece. And with our insurance costs rising, that revenue, rises accordingly. So, and the leases are, DJFS for up at the Family Support Center, the one stop down here with Title, BMV, and the DX, Educational Service Center, and then the airport was just negotiated. So if we look just at 2022, you see here that sales tax is 50% of the operating revenue, where it's 52% of the total revenue. When we look at the operating, which is the ongoing expenses of the county. So we pull the non-operating things that are one-time or dedicated revenues out. So sales tax is estimated to come in about $37 million next year. The charges for services are 11.4, and in that $3.5 million is conveyance fees. Indirect costs is about 1.7, and recorder fees are 1.3 million. So you see then it's really still mostly tied to property transactions and the charges for services. Property tax, again, it's just going to be a minimal increase, $9.7 million. Intergovernmental is going to be about just under 8 million next year. And the largest in that at 2.9 million is the casinos, followed by 2.3 in the indigent defense, and then local government funds at 1.4. Then there's just some other miscellaneous revenues that are tied to monies we receive from state and federal government. Fines and forfeitures we just talked about. Investment incomes are what they are. Licenses and permits. The largest thing in there is really the building inspection charges. There's not much else in that. So the total, what we're looking at in operating revenues for next year is $71,138,000. So that's a big deal. We're first seeing over the $70 million range. We'll be seeing that this year and into next year. And then we have some non-operating. We've got the economic development conveyance fee at $1.2 million. And other non-operating is the SWORT program that comes out of DJFS that's run through the general fund and supported by other counties in there. The CAS grant and then advance repayments are the main things in that area. So that covers the revenues. Then we look at the expense side. And I've got this broken down by program area, and I'll kind of go into more of each program area a little more in depth to say who's in there and whatever. But if we take a look at this, we've got criminal justice is at 42.5%, and judicial at the 22.8%. So really, when you look at those two combined, you're looking at over 65% of the general fund operating is to criminal and judicial. And then if you add in the public safety part at their 8%, that's, you're pushing 3/4 of the general fund operating is for that sector of services. Because when you look at the public safety, $3.2 million of that is related to the comm center. So when you're looking at 5.3 million public safety and 3.2 is the comm center, with the balance being building department and coroner and some EMA funding. So we're looking at an operating budget total of just over $67 million next year in this draft, keeping in mind that this draft is not addressing all the requests. We still have some things in there, and there are no salary actions in here outside of the bargaining units. So, that's why this is, I can't stress enough, this is just the draft because we still have decisions to make and need input from you on those. And when we look at the non-operating end of the expenses, $3 million is in there to transfer to capital. And that's been delayed for several years. But with us looking to start the juvenile facility, we're going to need that. And with some of the other ones on the horizon, we may want to think about increasing that $3 million so that we don't have to go out and borrow monies for some of those major projects. All right, so when I'm looking at these, if you want to look at what's in criminal justice, we have the courts probation and detention facilities, municipal courts probation, common pleas probation, and then the sheriff and adult detention. So juvenile hasn't been impacted because of changes in their reclaim grant. That's required moving staff from being funded under the grant into the general fund. They've been doing that over the past couple of years. And so we're seeing that this might be the last step in getting all those adjustments made. So juvenile is jumping up from 2.4 last year, 2.5 million up to 3.4 next year.
That reclaim grant,
Mhm.
Mary, what was, when that was first offered, were there services that are, I mean, was that typical like any grant? They offer additional services with the grant, and then as those services are utilized and you become dependent on it, then the grant goes away.
No, this one was a little bit different. It was pretty broad and covered back when it first came on board. They ran some foster parent programs through there and a lot of probation. So they really do have a lot of probation services out of there. What the changes are is they're being more restrictive on the types of probation officers that could be
reclaimed.
paid out of there. They have to be able to be doing certain activities. So what they're doing is they can't have their supervisors there. So they got to move those back over to general fund. And so they're doing a bunch of shuffling to fit with the changes. And those changes, they've been talking about those for probably 5 years or so now. And it's just been slowly being implemented.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. 2020, you're seeing the costs being a little bit lower than we would have expected, and they were lower than 2019, and that's because of the use of CARES Act monies. That was allowed to be used for public safety personnel, and so that impacted, the sheriff and mainly the sheriff's department for that. We'll see an increase also in all of the categories that have elected officials because of the census pushing the population up. So everybody took a little step up in the salaries. So you're going to see little jumps in here and there, and the total impact to the general fund was about 59,000 all told for those. Judicial services. The one under BCC is really Court of Appeals, and then we provide support to the advocate program. Court of Appeals is jumping. That really could be considered non-operating because the way Butler County billed it, it was, they were late 1 year, so now they're running a year behind. So we're looking for them to catch up to where they're billing. And that's going to be impacted by the census as well, because it is based, the allocation of the 12th district is based on the population of those counties that are in there. We see some changes in there for staffing in the clerk's operation. There have been some retirements. We can look for some other changes in the municipal clerk because of the outcome of the election this year. If we wind up with the new clerk, which I think they've certified. I don't know if you guys know for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so there could be some changes yet to come there. Domestic relations, the new judge has made a lot of changes up there on the court, and it's actually coming to where they're being able to reduce the amount that they're charging to the general fund. They've changed some staffing and made some other changes that's tweaked that. And also when you have new people, you've got changes in the fringes and so forth. So that's really affected a lot of these people here. The prosecutor is the biggest jump here. He's up like $216,000, and he's brought the new prosecutor brought in some new assistants. So there have been changes in that. We added some investigator positions this year, some part-time. So that's there, and some other staffing allocations with Dtac Fund being reduced. They're having to shift some of those salaries that they booked partially to delinquent tax collections back into the civil division. So they're making some changes in there. And they also have a $72,000 annual maintenance on their new case management system that you just recently approved them to go with. And there, of course, are some murder trials. So that has all impacted what we're having to budget in the prosecutor's office. And then the public defender, theirs is actually going down slightly, but it's because they've had some staffing changes too. So people leave, come back in, different rates, different hours, and so forth. So that's what you see in there. So it's pretty much staying. This year it's just over $15 million. Next year, judicial services are about $15.3 million. The general government area, these are most of your elected officials fall in here with the auditor, the commissioners, recorder and treasurer. Prosecutor civil division runs under the general government, and the tax map department of the engineer is in here. So when we're looking at the Board of County Commissioners, it's a lot more than just your office here. It includes facilities management, human resources, the inter-office mail room process, public information, planning, GIS, ISD, OMB, the record center, the risk management program, and then miscellaneous monies that we provide to support other entities. We provide some monies to them. So when you look at that, when you look at Board of Commissioners at $9 million, it's not just your office. It's a lot of the overall maintenance of the facilities and the things in the background that support the county. Let's see, Board of Elections is going to be going to an even number year next year, and their budgets are on a different trend, odd years, presidential, gubernatorial, so it is a fluctuation that happens every year. So they're jumping up a little bit because of that. And also we've got in here the increase that they've requested for their poll workers' pay. Now that's in our recommendation in the draft. The board has not agreed to that yet. So again, that's something that we'll need the feedback on. And I think that's really the bulk of the changes. So it's going from $12 million last year to $13 million this year to about $5 million next year. Public safety, the largest area here is comm center, and then followed by the building inspection department. Again, 2020 went down because of the use of CARES Act monies to offset some of the public safety personnel costs. The comm center's got an increase in their bargaining unit. They have a 2.5% increase in there for that. We also realigned some of their force supervisors were paid out of wireless funds, but because of the limitations on the revenues coming in there, we're having to increase the percentage back into the general fund on that. And then they had some slight increases in their other expenses. Building department, the increase there from 1.3 to just $1.4 million is full year of the plans examiner. So next year we had to take that out for a full year. Water resources is no longer going to support 50% of one of the employees, so we've shifted his whole salary into here. And we've also added an inspector trainee position that will help. It's hoped to help with the training of inspectors and getting young people more involved on that end of the construction business. Coroner is just going up slightly because of the elected official, and then they've got some succession planning. It's a very small office. So the person in there would like to maybe retire someday. And so the bringing in the person that they're going to hopefully step up into that position eventually. Health and Human Services has, for BCC again, that's the children with medical handicaps. That's tied to the valuation. So it's at 1/10 of a mil. So that's up to $515,000. We also have mandated share and funding for DJFS in there, and Children's Services and Family and Children First. So those are all mandatory. Except for Family and Children First, there's not much we can do about those. Public health is strictly a contract we have with public health since, the 70s, I believe, to run the TB clinic, maybe the 80s. Veteran Services is still well within their $500,000 that they're allowed. So, and they generally don't spend their whole amount, but it's in there to allow for their support. Then we've got the non-operating. The largest here you're going to look at is economic development. That's with those restricted conveyance fees. In 2020, we had $1.7 million transferred out of the excess conveyance fee money that was in general fund over to the development capital fund. And that'll be sitting in there for use in the track funding. So there won't be any budget in that next year when we get to the other funds because we're waiting. We don't think that's going to be needed until 2023. And then in the general fund economic development, they've plugged in like $466,000 for possible development projects. So they'll be working with the Port Authority and the TID and to get some projects going. So they've just put budget in there for that. The criminal justice has an increase of $150,000. They're looking that they're going to need a match or a grant, an increase. Okay, come on, Mary, an advance for the grant funds. So that'll be a loan. It's a non-operating because we're going to loan it to them. When the grant funds come in, they'll repay it. So it's an in and out thing. Under the legislative and executive piece, we've had several different things running through there. Recorder's back scanning project, which should finish up this year. We had a large municipal court damage back in 2019. This year, there was a settlement that got delayed, so we had it in this year's budget. We're pushing it into next year's, and then the $3 million capital, and then a software upgrade for the treasurer. And then the DJFS human resource employee is paid out of non-operating. 2019, if you're looking at that under the health insurance, health and human services, there was a $600,000 advance that was made to the health insurance fund. I don't have a slide for this little piece, but I know the mission of Clermont County, we're a service organization where the bulk of our funds are people. So in 2022, we've got 74% of the operating is personnel related, salaries and fringes and so forth. And then about 26% is in other costs. And if you add in the non-operating, because economic development has people, you're looking at 69% is personnel related and 31% is other. And that's just a little caveat. And again, that has no salary actions in there.
And for that, one of the things that's just, it's worth talking about on that is in government, they always go 80%. They always tell you when an outside organization comes in and evaluates your organization, if you're spending more than 80% on salaries and those costs, then you got to look, so we've been well below that.
Yes, we have.
Thank you.
All right, so this is just a summary of the general fund. We've got the general fund operating revenues estimated at just over 71 million, and the operating expenses in this draft are $67 million. So we'd be increasing the fund balance, so to speak, of $3.9 million. General fund non-operating, the revenues coming in will be about $2.7 million. The expenses are 6.5. So we're going to be drawing the non-operating down $3.8 million. So the net impact to general fund is just about $143,000. Again, we have to keep in mind that we've got increases requested that have not been addressed. You can go to the next slide. Of close to $2 million. And we need salary actions if the board so desires for the non-bargaining. Staffing related, we've got some requests and we've gone over that individually with you 2 weeks ago, I believe. Prosecuting attorney wants increased staff. He wants a full-time investigator, another a criminal assistant in common pleas. Public defender would like to have 2 social work case managers added to their staff. The sheriff has requested 6 additional deputies, 1 for court services, 1 in investigations, which would also help with the animal investigations, and then 4 in road patrol. Municipal court adult probation, the judges have asked for an increase for salary adjustments for the probation officers. And then in other requests for increased funding, OSU Extension has requested an additional educator. They've also got the impact of state salary increases because OSU governs their salaries, not the county. They have a retirement they need to pay out, and then operating costs. And because in the university, they have to have they're expected to have a 25% fund balance. They're requesting that we support them. So they're asking for money for that. And when you're looking at the OSU Extension, you just have to keep in mind, they've been flat since 2012. We have not given them an increase over their $201,000 since 2012. So that's a consideration. Board of Elections is asking for another $180,000 above the changes that are in the draft. Probably don't need that. They've taken out their additional staff persons that they had asked for. So those are some considerations. And then the prosecutor is asking for a traffic reconstructionist contract. And then again, of course, the salary actions. So for each salary, 1% of non-bargaining, you're looking at just under $273,000 impact. But because a couple of the bargaining contracts have Me Too clauses, if you get above 2.5%, one bargaining unit will have to be included in that. And if you get above 3%, the other bargaining unit. So for example, 3%, you'd have to put 0.5% into the one bargaining. So that would mean it would be another $823,000 to give a 3%. If you went to a 4%, it'd be just about $1.2 million to get to that in total. So that's just some thoughts. All of the 1.9 million aren't necessarily things that we would recommend, but again, you have the list of the requests, and whenever you feel the need or when you figure out what you want to do, let us know. We'll plug things in. We can plug it in and just see where it's going to put us, what it's going to do. Keeping in mind that on this next slide, there's some options on our expenditures. In the past practice has been to appropriate at prior year's actual revenues, okay? And that has been to keep the fund balance healthy. We want to keep the fund balance healthy. This year, since we're looking at the higher revenues and the fund balance has been growing mainly because of delays in some of the expenses for the capital program. We're looking at, maybe an option that you want to do is increase or do the appropriations based on the 2022 estimated revenues. So that's a difference. If you look at the 2021 projected revenues, we've got another $1.6 million to cover the 1.9 requests and salary actions. If we use the 2022 operating expenses, operating revenues, we're close to $4 million on what would be available. We want to keep the balance. You want to go to the next one? We want to keep the balance close to 35% of our expenditures. So right now we're over 40%. We've got a couple of things that you want to think about though when you do that, because this budget pretty much keeps it flat, from what was year end this year with the year end. Next year is still going to be in the neighborhood of $40 million, including the 5.3 budget stabilization. You can use some of that, draw your balance down, but you've got a couple things to keep in mind. We've got all these capital projects that are going to be going. We've got the Filliger campus expansion, renovation. We've got the juvenile, and our buildings are starting to get older. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, it's been a while. We used to put money from the general fund, had a healthy balance. We used to put money into the capital funds for the building R&I, replacement and improvement, so that the general fund had a healthy balance, so we could move that money every year so that when generators or roof repairs or things like that had to come up, we'd have the money. So we might want to consider starting to put that back into effect, moving money over into the capital fund to support the improvements that are going to be coming up for the ongoing support of our fixed assets. So not only do we have these two major construction projects, we've got some other little ones coming along, smaller ones being $3 million, $4 million, and then the annual that's going to be needed. So when we look at the balance in the fund, instead of putting it all into operating expenses that are going to be with us forever, you might want to start first looking at what do we need to contain our infrastructure and support that.
And Mary, with that discussion, there's a great point there with those two capital projects. I'm not aware of an evaluation that's been done so far as other sources of money that can be used within those projects for features that are already included in there. I know one of the talks at CCAO and other organizations in many, many counties who are doing capital improvements obviously are funding a lot of salient features of those capital improvements with other funds, that come from ARPA and place like that. Because if you're designing a facility to meet those requirements, then those funds are applicable to that. So
Right, sir.
I know those two projects, not to my knowledge, Greg, haven't really been evaluated for that.
That's correct.
So that could really, change the price tag of those projects as far as what is encumbered on the county.
Right, and we'll look here at the CARES and ARPA monies here in a minute. When we get into these other funds, as I said before, general fund is just 24% of everything that you guys budget. I'm going to go through some of these in a little bit more, but not much depth. But the total that the boards we're recommending the board adopt at this point in time is just under $306 million. General fund is only just under 74 million of that. So when you're adopting the appropriation, the general fund is your discretionary, but you also have to account for these other areas. And this is where you find the engineer and you find water resources and our debt service funds and so forth in here. So I know one of the other things that you're really interested in right now, Commissioner Painter, is the money that we're receiving for the COVID relief. So the CARES Act fund, we received in 2020 just under $10 million for the county, and it had a broad range of things that we could spend it on. We provided grants to schools, small business relief, elderly mental health and homelessness assistance, public safety efforts, PPE, the protective equipment, personal protective equipment, which included renovations throughout the county buildings for the social distancing, remote work, just a lot of that. Some of the restrictions were that it could not have been in your budget that was adopted as of March 27th, 2020. But then any expenses between March 1st of 2020 and December 31st of this year are eligible if they meet those criteria. And then they have to be spent by the end of this year. So we put quite a bit. We put about $570,000 into small business initiative and $995,000 to schools for various purposes, as well as other areas. The next is the ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan Act. And these are a lot more restrictive than the CARES Act. We'll be getting about just over $40 million. They gave us $20 million this year. They'll give us another $20 million next year from the federal government. The Treasury has not yet provided final guidance on the use of those funds, and the board has not yet really determined the specific uses that you have in mind. There's a lot going on. The infrastructure right now is limited to water and sewer and broadband. There is some legislation that's been introduced to try and open that up and give us a little more flexibility for new transportation and infrastructure projects. We're waiting to see what happens with that. These funds have to be used by December 31st of 2024. So we've got some years to go, but whatever projects you have to be able to be done by the end of 2024. So it may seem like you've got all this money to do things, but you've got to remember, you've got to go through all these steps before you get to the construction. Then you've got the construction itself. So there's a lot of consideration. And I think those are the things that administration and you have been tossing around to try and determine where we're going to use that.
So Mary, if you don't use it, does it go back?
It goes back. Yes, it does. So the other thing that they did put in there was the revenue replacement. They allowed us to look at the monies that we lost in 2020 based on the 2019 base year. And that's been calculated with, they put in a 4.1% growth is what they put in their formulas. And so it's somewhere between $7.5 and $8 million for replacement of revenues. And that can be used for any governmental purpose. So that, even if we don't have that other legislation passed, could be used for road improvements. So that's something that you do have some discretion on. The engineer did see a decrease in their revenue. Unfortunately, that year they were expecting to have some increases in fuel tax of $1.4 million, and they got the $0.4 million increase. So that they're hurting for the funds. So that's there. Water Resources lost about $1 million from their funds too as well. So those are some things that you can think about. Water Resources, again, falls into the higher category of the infrastructure projects that are allowed under ARPA. The roads at this point in time do not. So we're kind of waiting to see what they're finally come out.
I would have thought that water resources went up with all that hand washing.
Maybe they did. Some of us don't have Clermont County water.
Mary, under the ARPA, as far as the water and sewer, they've got their 5-year projects laid out. Does it have to be something they're coming up with now, or can this money be applied to what they're currently working on and, you know what I mean? But that,
Mary alluded to, the funds have to be used by, what,
It's and 24.
I mean, it's projects you're working on now. Can you use those right now on those funds, even though you've already started on it?
Does it have to be new projects?
Yeah.
or-
It doesn't say new projects. We have
Okay.
to look into see
Yeah,
that. And I
Okay.
know that they're also looking at some grants. You're waiting to
Yeah.
see what kind of funding you would have there.
yeah, the state came out with $251 million in water and sewer grant funds to be applied to 14 projects.
Yeah.
And they've awarded some of it, and we're still waiting
okay.
for some of our other projects.
Just trying to help out your water problem here. Thank you, Mary.
This slide is just showing you the what revenues that have come in under the CARES and the ARPA monies and what we've got planned to spend it. The ARPA, the reason you see $15 million in there rather than put in the whole 40 million, it's not going to be able to be spent. The auditor provided that estimate, and really it's just over a third. And we've got 3 years to spend it in. So they put in a budget of 15 million. That could be increased once you determine the projects. So that's really truly at your discretion there. The other thing that falls under the pandemic relief funds is the emergency rental assistance funds. And there's 2 separate ones that came in here, and they're all administered by Department of Job and Family Services. The first one came out of the Consolidated Appropriations Act for 2021. What's called the Emergency Rental Assistance Fund 2 is part of ARPA. So they're separate. And we're running sub-grant agreements with the Clermont County Community Services Incorporated to actually manage that. And if individuals have access to other funding sources for their rental assistance, they're not eligible for these dollars. So they apply to community services does the research, and you have agreements with them for administration of that. Then I'm going to talk really fast here unless you have questions. Health and Human Services funds the Job and Family Services, which has the Public Assistance Fund, Children's Services, Child Support, and the Workforce Development. Juvenile Children's Services, they have a piece for delinquent and unruly youth in the court's custody. Those are placement costs. Developmental Disabilities has money in here and they're including money to renovate the Wildy School, a roof and some windows, and they're looking at about a $3.5 million project on that. And they've had some expansion of waiver services that have impacted there. Then you've got the Senior Services Levy. Your animal control falls under the Health and Human Services, and that changed this year to the county operating it rather than contracting it out. So it's a learning curve and trying to get that all set up. So you'll see some fluctuations in there. And then there's some just other minor changes in there with the juvenile 4E, domestic violence shelter, and then the septic rehab. The environmental and water resources, this has your water resources operations as well as the water resources construction. The construction is based on the capital plan that they have in place, and they update it annually for their 5-year plan. Solid waste management. Soil and water conservation is looking to increase because they're anticipating some H2 Ohio grant monies to come in and some other grants. So they're looking to revamp some of their services, and so you'll be hearing some more information about that in the coming months. And then the stormwater varies just based on the planned projects there. Under general government, these are non-general fund and non-COVID monies again. You again have some BCC monies, and it's basically the capital improvement fund. The auditor has their REA, hotel lodging, and they still have a small amount left for the Tyler system. The clerk of court certificate of title, you see that little jump this year? They have historically budgeted more based on their revenues. And I think this year they're going back to looking at their trend of actual expenditures. So it's not really they're cutting $2 million out of their budget that really wasn't spent to begin with. So that's something that kind of jumps right out at you when you're looking at actual expenditures versus the current year budget. Then you've got the prosecutor and treasurer have Dtac funds, the recorder's technology grant. That's used basically for their scanning projects. And the Board of Elections isn't going to have any special election or grant monies anticipated for this year, for 2022. We have 4 internal service funds in the county. One that tracks our health insurance, one for our fleet maintenance, one for our telephones, and then workers' comp. Money is coming in from the users to fund these projects. Workers' comp, we had some rebates in 2020 of $2.9 million that got allocated back to the departments. So you'll see that in there. In 2022, we're anticipating doing some safety and security upgrades and expenses directly out of the workers' comp fund monies because of all the dividends and rebates that have been coming in there. Transportation, you've got the engineer, CTC, and then the improvement districts. The engineer has estimated resurfacing and bridge projects at just over $5 million, both this year and next year. And that compares to just under $2 million that was done last year in 2020. CTC had a big impact from the COVID when they had to reduce their routes, limited transportation services. So they have some federal monies that are coming in for the COVID relief, and that's coming in directly to them. So hopefully that's going to get them back up to speed where they need to be. There are other expenses under the criminal justice system. As we touched on before, juvenile court, that has the reclaim, which is the largest piece of theirs. They also have 1D, Title 1D monies, which is their teachers in the detention facility. They get their money through Batavia schools for that. And the sheriff has their contracts for contract deputies with townships and other municipalities. That's like $2.2 million next year. They also have concealed carry funds in there, narcotics unit, minimal federal forfeitures. Their forfeitures are pretty much drying up at this point in time. So there is some money budgeted for their federal forfeitures, includes their Task Force 1 operating fees. Then a couple small ones, DUI, enforcement and education, professional education funds. And those are going to be gone by 2023. They have not had any revenues in for several years. Common pleas and municipal court probation has some grants that help to offset general fund monies. It's a small amount compared to what they have there, but it is monies that come in that can be used for the probation, specialized probation and so forth. Judicial is another large part. Not really large part, just $1.3 million. They have the law library. Their funding comes from the traffic fines. So they had a reduction in 2020, and they're back on their feet again. Several of the court judicials use their computerization monies to cover their case management software maintenance agreements, their annual agreements there. So that's where the bulk of those things come from or go to. Municipal court also uses their clerk computerization fund for an IT person that supports all of municipal court. Prosecutor is their advocate grant that was reduced by 35%. And again, general fund is the fund of choice to pick that up. Juvenile court had an $80,000 technology grant in 2021. They also have a VOCA grant that funds the CASA recruitment, which is a court-appointed special advocates. I think that's pretty much it. Domestic relations is this year going to fund a part-time magistrate out of their special project fund, as well as their legal research material and training. Economic and community development, that the investments is the planning and development capital fund. Again, as I said, it's being deferred for the track funding in a couple more years. And then on the CDBG end, we have seen that getting moving on some of these CDBG projects has become a priority this year and next. So that's where you see a jump from where it was running under $1 million to we're projecting it to be over $2 million next year to get some of those monies gone. And then the next one really, just debt service funds. They are what they are, paying off some assessments. And public safety is your emergency management and the wireless 911 monies. In summary, thank God. All right. This slide shows the draws on the funds. So it's by fund type. So when you see general there, that is not just your county general fund. It's the type that's general fund. So it includes the sick and vacation liability under the non-operating piece. And we went over what's going to impact the fund balance on general earlier. Special revenue funds is going to draw about $2 million on theirs. Emergency rental assistance fund is booked in there to pull down $5.5 million. They don't have any revenues anticipated to come in this year. Then REA has got 800,000 and REA is 568,000 and the MV&G is $829,000 draw. But then on the other hand, you've got some growth. You've got the ARPA funds is going up by $5 million. Public assistance is looking for a $400,000 increase in their fund balance, and CDBG about $400,000. So it's all in timing on that CDBG grant when money comes in. And also title fund is looking to grow another $300,000. So at that point, we'll talk to them about increasing their surplus. Capital is basically the county capital that's drawing just the 2.8 of that money is the county capital with the projects going. Outside agencies, there's a draw by developmental disability of just under $5 million, and then a small draw from FCF of $300,000. Outside agencies includes mental health as well as DD. Internal service, the draw for the most part is workers' comp with using some of those monies for safety and security endeavors, and then the health insurance fund of $200,000. That's it.
We thank you.
Thank you for being done.
Thank you for your presentation and for getting with everyone individually and reviewing the content so we can study and understand what we're going to do.
3 comments, Mary.
Okay.
I know you went over the sheriff's, funds from concealed carry.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's a move here in the state of Ohio to do away with concealed carry permits unless you want reciprocity. That seems to be gaining a lot of windfall in the House. It has passed the House. Now it takes a Senate and a governor's signature. That may well come. And concealed carry permits would be reduced to only those people that want to have one for reciprocity to other states. in Ohio would become a constitutional carry. So, take a look at what they could lose possibly in revenues. The Dtac Fund, I know Michael is currently working on a program, and that's funded from that Dtac Fund. I didn't know if you had an opportunity to
We
take
have
a look
not.
at that
That
and
is
talk
on
about
our
it.
radar to see if that is going to actually take money out of the treasurer and prosecutor's DTAC to put over there. And if it is, then the prosecutor has already been reducing theirs, and it looked like the treasurer was taking some of that into account. So that is something that will be looked at.
There's one other fund there to take a look at, and I'm just bringing it up because we just had the census. Every 10 years after the census, obviously the Rea Fund is evaluated as to what monies are available and left over. Monies that aren't going to be used are supposed to be returned back to the taxing agency. The last time I had looked at that, it was, and I may be way off there, it was about $4.2 million. 53% of that would go back to the schools in this county. If that has any encumbered balance, and I'm not saying that it does or it doesn't, it's just something that needs to be looked at.
We've mentioned that to the auditor, and she's hesitant about turning anything over yet, turning back monies. It's been done one time in my career here, that it was given back. But they're saying that there's some differences in the way they're doing the assessments. And right now, they're cautious because another county had done that, and now they're hurting for REA monies. So she wants to take a better, longer look at it first.
It totally understand. I mean, that reimbursement is outlined in the ORC.
Mhm.
It's under an Ohio law. So,
Right.
if that is something that needs to be done, obviously the schools in this county, 14 public schools, could obviously use that money, no
Right.
question.
In which case it would have to be budgeted anyway.
Correct.
Well taken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, very much.
Thank you.
That was a great job.
But
Emily,
I am
you too.
expecting
Thank
to
I
you.
was
hear
going
back
to say Emily also.
Yes,
does.
very much so.
She kept the office running while I was looking at this, going in different directions and expanding with some changes at CTC, with the animal control. There's just been so many different things going on that has come to our table, so to speak. In this budget, we did put in to fill the vacant budget analyst position so that we could get that in there and alleviate some of that and keep up with the demands.
Thank you very much.
Would you entertain about a 5-minute break?
Sure, if you want to.
Right.
At this time, there's a request on the floor to take a 5-minute break, 5-minute recess. Do I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes, we'll return in 5 minutes. We have returned from a short recess, and we're moving on to the agenda this morning. Next item is public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to participate in public participation this morning? Seeing and hearing none, we will move on then to our consent agenda. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to take a couple items that are on the consent agenda, which is under the training and travel. I'd like to take it's under number 15, take the last two items on that and move it to the non-consent agenda in the very beginning. And at the same time, under the non-consent agenda, to present item number 33 and 34 together. So we would do those four items at the very beginning. Do I have a motion to make those changes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes. So we're going to start on the consent agenda. Once those items have been removed, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
What are we voting on?
Consent agenda, we've already moved two items
Oh,
out.
the rest of
The rest,
consent agenda.
the rest of it, so we don't have to do each one of these pages. Second, okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bachelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes, now we'll move on to the consent agenda. I think on our original document, it started on page 9.
Non-consent.
Right,
Non-consent.
or non-consent, thank you. Okay, so let me go. First item we're going to have on the non-consent agenda is, we're going to, if I can find number 15 that we had previously on consent. Okay. So there's a motion before you to approve training and travel for Tracy Braun. There's two items actually under that. Do you want them separately or do we do them jointly together?
Well, they're two separate
Two
actions. I
separate.
do them separate.
Okay, so the first one is a training and travel request for Atlanta, Georgia. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Hearing none. Do we need to call roll?
no, the item dies.
Died, right?
Yes.
Item number 2 is training and travel for Tracy Braun to Washington, D.C. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Hearing none. Right, then we're going to move on to item
Do we
number,
not have discussion on that then?
You would need a second motion to
need a
have
second to
Right,
then
discussion
do it.
on the motion.
Right.
That's correct.
Ball's on the table.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
It's done.
Do we redo the motion or are we standing as read?
Done.
Or it's done?
Yes.
Okay, all right. No, that's fine. That's quite all right. Good to ask. Okay, let's move on to the non-consent agenda, the two items that I moved up, which was item number 3 and 33 and item number 34. We will do both of those motions right now.
On those, I'd withdraw that travel on 33 and 34. I no longer have a desire to travel.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept that withdrawal? Holly?
It would be, we're just asking for the board to amend the,
Okay.
today's consent agenda.
Non-
So we're asking, I'm sorry, the
That's all right.
board's non-consent agenda to withdraw items number 33 and 34 from today's item for consideration.
All right, I will make that motion. Is there a second?
Yes, I will second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter,
Same.
Okay. Now let's go back to on the non-consent agenda, moving to item number 18. Item number 18 is a recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners adopt resolution number 179-21, resolving to approve payment to vendors in the amount of $2,615,738.15 as set forth in the BCC approval invoice report for checks dated December the 1st, 2021, BCC directed prepaid invoices reports and the procurement card transaction report as presented by the county auditor on November 29, 2021, and further authorizing the county auditor to issue warrants for the same pursuant to Section 319.16 of the Ohio Revised Code. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Item number 19, Connie Tibby, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank
Took a long time to get to
thank
you.
you for having me. Item number 19 is the recommendation of Timothy Dick, the Director of Department of Job and Family Services, with the concurrence of Thomas J. Eigel, County Administrator, to execute Amendment Number 2 to the subgrant agreement by and between the County of Clermont, Ohio, and Clermont County Community Services Incorporated in Batavia, Ohio, previously ratified by the Board of County Commissioners on February the 10th of 2021 and subsequently amended on August the 11th of 2021 for the provision of emergency rental assistance, ERA1, program services in Clermont County, Ohio, with said Amendment Number 2 to revise the line item budget to reflect a decrease in the budget from $6,162,104.70 to $5,545,894.23, which represents a 10% decrease in the amount of $616,210.47, as outlined in the revised ERA1 program budget attached thereto and incorporated therein as Exhibit 2, effective for the period of February the 10th, 2021 through September 30th, 2022, with no other items and conditions of the original subgrant agreement and amendment thereto to remain in full force and effect.
Board, you've heard the recommendation to execute the Amendment Number 2 to the subgrant agreement with Clermont County Community Services Incorporated. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes, thank you, Connie. Item number 20. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I've got Suki Sheets was going to present, but you are. Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Jeremy Evans, County Engineer. Item 20 is recommendation to execute record plat number 629-3306 for the following subdivision located in Batavia Township, and to further execute the combined performance and maintenance bond as well as the performance bond for sidewalks as surety for same relative to the construction of the below listed streets. This is the Little Creek 2 subdivision section 2 performance maintenance bonds of $22,000 and $10,000. Sidewalk bond is $25,320. This is the Otter Creek Drive, a length of 0.11 miles.
Board, you've heard the recommendation to execute record plat number 629-3306 and further to execute the combined performance maintenance bond, performance bond for sidewalks. This is Batavia Township. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes. Item number 21.
21 is a recommendation to execute record plat number 629-3307 for the following subdivision located in Batavia Township to further execute the combined performance and maintenance bond as well as performance bond for sidewalk as surety for same relative to the construction of the below listed streets. This is the Derby Place subdivision section 5, performance maintenance bonds of $22,000 and $10,000 again, sidewalk bond $22,000 for the street Oaks Trail, a distance of 0.099 miles.
Board, you've heard the reading recommendation, execute record plat number 629-3307 and to execute the combined performance maintenance bond, performance bond for sidewalks, Batavia Township. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes. Item number 22.
Item 22 is a recommendation to execute record plat number 629-3308 for the following subdivision in Union Township to further execute the combined performance maintenance bond as well as performance bond for sidewalks as surety for same relative to the construction of the below listed streets. This is the 12 Oaks subdivision, section 2. Performance maintenance bonds, 1.165 million. Performance and $58,228.73 maintenance. Sidewalk bond, $65,600. The streets are Family Farm Drive, Dedication Lane, Traditions Ridge, and the links listed there.
Board defer the recommendation, and this is another one for record plat number 629-3308. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bachelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Item 23, recommendation to execute record plat number 629-3309 for the replat of lots in the following subdivision located in Batavia Township. This is the Carriage Station subdivision, section 2. This is a replat of lot 5. This is Batavia Township again. Record plat number 629-3309. The purpose would be to create a private 10-foot water service easement and a 20-foot drainage easement, and to extinguish an existing 20-foot drainage easement.
Board to approve the recommendation to execute record plat number 629-3309. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Bachelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes. Number 24.
24 is recommendation to execute record plat number 629-3310 for the replat of lots in the following subdivision in Batavia Township. This is the Webb subdivision. It's a replat of lot 13 and 14. The purpose is to create a new lot number 15.
Board deferred the recommendation to execute record plat number 629-3310. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bachelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes. Item number 25.
Item 25 is a recommendation to accept the extension of Paul Street located in Union Township with a length of 0.170 miles, situated therein as a public road for placement in the Union Township public road system. This is the extension of Paul Street, Township number 915. This is the new connection on Old 74 opposite of Teal Town that provides access to those properties that will lose access when the State Route 32 improvements are completed. The length of the new extension again is 0.170 miles.
Board deferred the recommendation to accept the extension of Paul Street, and this is in Union Township. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Bachelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes. Thank you for waiting this morning. Item number 26, Lyle Bloom.
Item 26 is a recommendation to award the bid for biosolids and alum residuals disposal services for the Clermont County Water Resources Department pursuant to the specifications to Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated out of Cincinnati, Ohio, for the lowest and best bid received on October 7th, 2021, for a total estimated annual amount of $650,553.50, and to execute the contract relative thereto effective 1/1/2022 through 12/31/2026, with the option to renew for an additional one-year period upon the same terms and conditions pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions set forth therein, and award of bid therefore, and contingent upon the receipt of an updated certificate of liability insurance and the adoption of an annual appropriations for fiscal year 2022 and issuance of the purchase orders. And this represents, this is for the tipping fees to dispose of the biosolids and alum residuals, and represents an increase, about a 13% increase from our current contract that we have.
Board deferred the recommendation to award the bid for biosolids and alum residuals disposal service. Goes to Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bachelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes. Item number 27.
Item 27 is a recommendation to award the bid and execute the contracts for the furnishing and delivery of chemicals for the Clermont County Waterworks System pursuant to the specifications to the following vendors as the lowest and best bids received on October 14th, 2021, for a total estimated cost of $652,680, effective 1/1/2022 through 12/31/2022. pursuant to the, and in compliance with the terms and conditions, and the award of bids therefore, and contingent upon the adoption of the annual appropriations for 2022 and the issuance and receipt of the necessary purchase orders. So the first is with Chemtrade Chemicals for aluminum sulfate, a total estimated amount of $165,240. The bids for chlorine were non-responsive, so we'll handle those with a separate contract. The next is Bonded Chemicals for bids for hydrofluosilicic acid, total amount of $42,854.50. The next is Bonded Chemicals for caustic soda, $379,427.50. And the last is also Bonded Chemicals for potassium permanganate, $65,158. And this is our annual chemical contract for our water treatment plants. And these unit prices represent about a 44% increase over our current year contracts.
Board, you've heard the reading of all the bid awards, and this is the furnishing and delivery of chemicals for the Clermont County Waterworks System. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes. Item number 28.
Item 28 is a recommendation to execute a contract for professional services between the Board of County Commissioners and Burgess and Nyepel Incorporated out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And this is for project number 6402-60193 relative to the Middle East Fork Wastewater Treatment Plant Improvements Project located in Batavia Township in accordance with the consultant's proposal dated 10/28/2021. For a total amount not to exceed $486,716, with said services to be completed within 210 consecutive calendar days upon issuance of a written notice to proceed from the Clermont County Water Resources Department, exclusive of county review time, pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions set forth therein, and contingent upon the release of the necessary purchase orders. And this is for improvements to our fine screens, grit removal. We're going to replace our septage receiving station at the treatment plant, new aeration basin blowers, replacing some of the buried piping, and then electrical and control upgrades at the treatment plant.
Board, you've heard the recommendation to accept the contracts for professional services. This is relative to the Middle East Fork Wastewater Treatment Plant Improvement Projects. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes. Item number 29.
Item number 29 is a recommendation to execute an extension of contract for professional services between Clermont County and McGill Smith Puncheon Incorporated out of Cincinnati for the provision of surveying services for various water and wastewater projects located within Clermont County for an additional 2-year period effective 12/11/2021 through 12/10/2023 for a total amount not to exceed $200,000 pursuant to and in compliance with Article 4 of the contract for professional services with all of the terms and conditions to remain in full force and effect and contingent upon the release of the necessary purchase order. They provide surveying for all of our easements, and then if we're doing any in-house design, they do all the survey work for us.
Board, you've heard the recommendation to contract for professional services, and this is for the provision of surveying services for the various water and wastewater projects. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes. Item number 30.
Item 30 is a recommendation to accept the following grant of water easement with rights of reentry for repair and replacement that will be granted and conveyed to Clermont County for utility purposes of constructing, operating, maintaining, repairing, replacing, removing, or reinstalling water utility lines, pumping equipment, and all incidental fixtures required for the transportation of water in, on, under, and across the property of the grantors, as well as provide ingress and egress access to the easement area for the parcel outlined below for property located along Deer Woods Drive in Miami Township. And this is relative to the Parkview subdivision. And the grantors are Nathaniel A. and Stephanie Mingus at 1553 Deer Woods Drive.
Board, you've heard the reading and the names of the grantors to accept the following grant of water easement with the rights of reentry for repair and replacement. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Is there second? Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran.
Yes. Thank you.
you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
waiting so long. Item number 31, Clermont Transportation Connection. Scott Brewer, how are you? Thank you for waiting today.
Scott Brewer, Director of Clermont Transportation Connection. Recommendation of myself with the concurrence of Thomas J. Igle, County Administrator, to execute a purchase of service agreement by and between Board of County Commissioners doing business as the CTC and JMK Transportation LLC for the provision of a secondary transportation provider for non-emergency transportation and at-risk pregnancy transportation programs in concert with the Memorandum of Understanding with the Clermont County Department of Job and Family Services ratified by the Board of Commissioners on 3/17/2021 to execute the second of two options to renew set forth in Article 1 of the Purchase of Service Agreement entitled Period of Contract Heretofore, ratified by the Board of County Commissioners on 12/3/2019 for an additional one-year period effective 12/7/21 through 12/6/2022 for the, pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions set forth therein and contingent upon the insurance of the purchase order therefore. So basically, we have a contract with JMK who provides secondary transportation to help out where we have driver shortages. And this is just to execute the second one-year extension on that contract.
Board, you've heard the recommendation to execute the second of two options on this contract, and this is for the provision of secondary transportation provider for non-emergency and at-risk pregnancy transportation programs. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran.
Yes, thank you very much. Item number 32, Michael McNamara.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning to
Morning.
you.
My name is Michael McNamara. I'm Director of Community and Economic Development. Item number 32 is recommendation of Bruce Crace, County Building Inspector, with the concurrence of Michael McNamara, Director of Community and Economic Development, Building Inspection Department Division, to adopt resolution number 180-21, resolving to adopt a revised fee schedule as set forth in Exhibit A attached thereto and made part thereof with an effective date of 1/1/2022, and which shall apply to all applications filed and our fees accessed thereafter. So we had two public hearings with the commissioners, in addition to a number of other public outreach prior to those two hearings. Last hearing public with the commissioners was approximately 1 month ago. The proposed fee schedule has been available online on our website, as well as physically in the commissioner's office and physically at Permit Central. And we are confident in proceeding. There have been no additional communications or recommendations to the fee schedule since it's been made public.
Thank you. Board, you've heard the recommendation to adopt resolution number 180-21, resolving to adopt that revised fee schedule. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Item number 35 would be, Emily, you're up again.
I have a recommendation from Mary Raines. This is to resolve to approve and authorize changes in the annual appropriation resolution number 191-20 for calendar year 2021 pursuant to Ohio Revised Code section 5705.40. This is several supplemental appropriations. Common Pleas Special Projects salary increase $6,500. Common Pleas Special Projects, the fringe benefits increase $500. And that's due to temporary staff. We have disabilities, residential services, other expenses, $200,000. Juvenile court retirement payout, $6,058, and the Reclaim Ohio retirement payout, $6,629.
Board, you've heard the motion to approve and authorize changes to the annual appropriation resolution number 191-20 for calendar year 2021. You heard the reading of the supplemental appropriations. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes, thank you, Emily. Next on our agenda is item G. Mr. Bickford, do we have any additions to the agenda this morning? Thank you. Item H, any county staff or elected officials this morning? Any other further discussions? Hearing none. Members, any member comments this morning?
None here.
No comments? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn, please. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran.
Yes. Thank you for joining us, and we are adjourned.